So just before this video gets going, I do want to mention I have a Discord server. Join if you want to, suggest new video ideas, or just come hang out and chat with us. If you like anything that you see here today, you'll like pretty much everything else on my channel, so why not subscribe? Thanks. Another day and another bad IGN review. Hope you're doing well, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. And today, like I said before, we're going to be talking about the IGN review on Invincible Season 3 finale. And I'm not gonna lie, this article right here just proved yet again why IGN is really known for bad reviews, really bad takes, and why you should only really go to them for gaming content, even though after their Monster Hunter Wilds review, I'd stop going to them for that as well. Now, my whole gripe with this article is that the guy who's writing it seemingly wanted more out of Conquest, which is the final villain of the season, than what was actually expected or than what he was actually supposed to be. You see, Conquest is a character that is pretty simple on the surface level, but with low level complexities underneath. The simple part being that he's a guy that loves to have his fists drenched in blood, someone who absolutely relishes in battle, but the low level complexities that were never really explored are that everybody's scared of him on Viltrum, nobody wants to be his friend, and there are times where he's so lonely that he wants to cry, but he doesn't. I mean, this guy's so strong that he doesn't even get a real name. It's just a purpose. Conquest. Conquering. Now that you understand that, let's get into this article. After What Have I Done ended on a high note, promising action hand in hand with vital advancements for the characters, the Season 3 finale, I Thought You'd Never Shut Up, drops the ball. Narratively scattered and thematically incoherent, it's the first bad episode Invincible ever had. One that draws on familiar sights and stories from the show and other superhero media, but presents them with little to nothing beneath the surface. The arrival of the elderly one-armed Viltrumite warrior Conquest at a time when Mark is caught up in between killing or not sets the stage for a moral dilemma that never arrives, but whose conclusion is presented as though it were agonized over for 40 minutes. Instead, we're treated with a finale centered entirely around Conquest, who's better suited to playing a traditional bad guy rather than the final boss of such an emotionally loaded season. Not only have we never seen Conquest prior to last week's closing moments, he's also been devoid of any real ideology. Claiming to only love death and destruction makes him a useful foil to Mark, but as an exclamation point on Season 3, he's a giant shoulder shrug with little connection to anything meaningful and invincible. So here's the first thing that I don't agree with, and this is kind of like how I was saying before, this guy expects more out of Conquest than what was originally intended for the character. Not only is this guy wrong about us not seeing him beforehand, because we first see him when Nolan's explaining where he really comes from, of course this being before the injuries to the Ragnar, which is what gave him his bionic hand and his scar on his eye, but you also say that he has no connection to anything meaningful and invincible. Now, in the grand scheme of things, as in the whole story of Invincible, this guy is only here for a blip of time. But in that time, Mark having to go through this hurdle, this is like one of the bigger hurdles that he has to go through involving Viltrum. And after the second time that he fights him, Mark definitely gets stronger from that experience. But hell, we could even look to the first time when Mark fights him, which is what was shown. When Mark's being tossed around by Conquest, the guy says himself, "Hey, I'm not going to believe that you're an actual Viltrumite until I see your heart beating from your chest, until you show me your rage." Now, I'm not saying that Conquest was directly trying to train this guy, but he indirectly helps him get stronger just by battling him, which is akin to training. Only this form of training is literally life or death, and if Mark dies, then the entire planet does. I say all this just to point out that not only is Conquest a good foil to Mark, who doesn't want to kill, who doesn't want to be like Viltrumites, who wants to be different from his father, who, as we know, is so stuck in the Viltrumite customs and ways, but Conquest is also another test of strength for Mark, and as we'll see later on in the story, and as you actually see in the comic, this battle with Conquest teaches Mark that sometimes, like in some cases, you actually do have to kill somebody, otherwise millions are going to suffer, or in Earth's case, billions. Something that was a bit of a recurring statement in the earlier parts of this season was that you can be the good guy or the guy that saves the planet, but you can't be both. Mark challenges this statement by killing Conquest, both becoming the hero and saving the planet, because once again, Conquest was going to kill everyone. Now, even though I did just give Conquest his flowers for the episode, because he's not meaningless to the story, him not having an ideology as the writer of this article expected him to have isn't something that's bad for Conquest. And if you really think about it, it's probably not even true. Conquest is somebody who could, I guess, resemble the ideologies of Viltrum, and someone who somewhat embodies them to a T, and someone who never really fails his assignments. As such, he was given the name Conquest. And I wouldn't even say that he's suited to playing a traditional bad guy, because he's so much stronger than the other bad guys in the series. Like, this guy would most likely give Nolan a run for his money simply because of the fact that he's older than him and he has more experience than Nolan. This is why when stuff like this comes up, I usually say it's always good to read like the comics or the source material just to find out what's going on, because if he had done that, half the stuff that we just went over would have never been typed out on his keyboard. Conquest antics force Mark to put civilians in danger once again, a development our hero doesn't even acknowledge despite it being such a potent part of his recent arcs. Yeah, because he was getting his ass beat the entire time. Mark literally took Conquest up into space and then Conquest brought it right back down to Earth. And it's because he doesn't care about the buildings, he doesn't care about the people. Conquest is going to do what he wants to because he's stronger than you. And also because Viltrum told him that he could. He said it himself, he never really gets to cut loose like he did on Earth. So that, coupled with the fact that he loves to have his fist drenched in blood, I mean, of course, Mark's not going to be able to do much about it but kill this guy. And so yes, a lot of civilians are going to die if somebody like Conquest shows up. I Thought You'd Never Shut Up ignores any leftover angst from the Powerplex saga, despite reenacting the supervillain origin story, a Viltrumite big bad using Mark as a battering ram to slaughter innocent bystanders. But Conquest ending season 3 the way Nolan ended season 1 lacks weight. Rather than Mark feeling each death, the people are merely collateral damage, and the guy forcing Mark to kill them isn't someone he knows. Once again, I'm going to assume that this guy hasn't read anything from the comics, but to you, he killed Angstrom Levy, and he didn't know him. Before, earlier in the season, when Mark was fighting that dragon, he thought he had ended the battle by killing him, by breaking open his head, and he didn't know that guy. Point is that there's going to be a lot of times in Invincible where Mark doesn't know the person, but he has to kill them, and that's never really going to take away from the impact of the episode. It's Invincible doing an encore of one of its greatest hits, but in completely uninteresting fashion, making it damn near impossible to invest in the climax of this uneven season. What is this guy even talking about, bro? Like, everyone was waiting for this episode, okay? Ever since the preview from last week dropped, this was all anybody was talking about. And of course, I mean, this is his opinion, I guess. Damn, bro, as somebody who's reading an article from IGN for the first time, or rather, first time here on the channel, this guy missed so much of the point, it's not even funny. And I actually like the fact that they drew a little bit of a parallel from what Omni-Man was doing in season 1 with the train to what Conquest did in season 3 on the beach. I picked up on that instantly. And I thought it was pretty cool because not only is it a pretty iconic callback, but it also shows where Mark is still, and that he's still kind of fighting how he was in season 1, and that when dealing with a stronger opponent, he's just kind of letting them toss him around, letting them cause so much destruction, as opposed to listening to what his father was telling him in season 2 and fighting like a Viltrumite. This guy then goes on to say that even with Eve's injuries, it would have been hard to believe that she's actually going to stay dead or have any lifelong consequences from this battle because of how good the GDA's healing is, or how technologically advanced they are, to which he then says that Eve's power-up at the end of the show ends up feeling more magical and out of the blue than anything. To which, I mean, I guess if you're not really familiar with what happens, or even if you just skipped over her explanation of what happened with her powers after she was in the hospital with Mark, sure, I guess. But these two tropes are in comics and in fiction all the time. I mean, how many times are you going to be entered into a world where some government agency has insanely high technological capabilities and where people get a seemingly out of nowhere power boost from a near-death experience? So if you have a problem with that, you're pretty much going to hate a lot of superhero media. Overall, IGN rated this episode a 4 out of 10, with the verdict being Invincible repeating its past triumphs but with far less heft in its season 3 finale. I Thought You'd Never Shut Up gives into the show's most self-destructive instincts and pivots entirely around a bad guy we've never seen before, which isn't true, and has its hero's central season-long arc pay off in words rather than actions or agonizing decisions. It's the first time Invincible has ever truly been subpar, ending on a sour note. Absolutely atrocious article. I could have honestly done better myself, but the part that gets me is that he didn't even really talk about what was good about the episode. And I know a lot of other people on Twitter will say otherwise, but I feel like the animation in this episode was amazing. Like, far better than what we've seen before. And what we've seen before, I mean, I don't really think it was that bad. I know like a lot of people have their gripes with season 2 and at some parts of season 3 actually. But you know, I had a little bit of a feeling that this episode would actually be somewhat of a better animated episode. Because one, I mean, it's the finale and of course it's a big battle. So doing the animation justice would only seem right. But anyways guys, that's gonna be it for me today. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button. If you want more content similar to this, hit that subscribe button. And a special shout out to the member of our Discord server for this video idea named Thom. He's a very esteemed purple role in the server, so W video idea for sure. Anyways guys, peace.